So I thought maybe we would look at Vivian Campbell for just a little bit. Vivian Campbell, interesting. When I graduated barely out of high school in 1983, I was all over Vivian Campbell. That Dio first album, that was just killer. I mean, Black Les Paul. I've got my Les Paul out. 1983 custom, I believe it is, and at the latest. It was my father's, but it's nice. So anyway, Vivian played a black Les Paul. I don't know. I can't remember if it was custom. I should know that. But anyway, I was a huge fan. And I remember when I was just learning to play, it was probably about 2 years. Really wasn't taking it that serious, but it was getting ready to get out of school and had a little bit more time to dedicate to guitar playing because I really thought maybe it wasn't important to get a job. But be that as it may. So me and this guy got together and jammed a little bit. I didn't know, like a half of a Dawkins song or something. And he gave me a stack of albums, vinyl. And he said, dude, take these home, listen to them, blah, blah, blah. And it was like Queensryche, Iron Maiden, whoever, whatever, around that time zone. And Dio, Holy Diver, was in there. And I listened to all of them, and I was like, not to whatever, impugn, but I mean, it was just like, well, it just wasn't what I was looking for. And man, I put on that Holy Diver. Jesus, that was heavy. Just Vivian with those artificials, and I'm probably not going to be able to pull them off. But it was. It was like. Something akin to that. But anyway, that first album, he was burning. Just awesome. I remember he said the first time when he auditioned, they jammed for about 3.5 hours, and his exact words in Guitar World magazine, I remember the interview, I bought it. He said, I was wailing that day. And I mean, he was wailing back then. Second album came out, still kind of a little bit more of the same, I guess, with him. But this is what happened, I think, with Vivian Campbell, because I was definitely a student of Vivian Campbell. And I know he's had some health problems, and I last I heard he's doing good, and certainly we hope and wish him the best. It was interesting. So, I'm buying every guitar magazine, Guitar World magazine. Vivian Campbell was my favorite guitar player. I mean, I was just like all over it. All over it. And I knew the whole album, right or not, but I knew just about the whole album. And so anyway, I pick up a Guitar World magazine. It's like 1984-ish or something. And a little byline. I think Jeff Beck was on the cover. And a little byline, they have the other little stories about who's in the magazine, and it said Vivian Campbell, the best heavy metal guitar player you've probably never heard of. And I thought, oh, I've heard of him. And so it was cool. And he was very cool in that interview. Very nice. And then he got to the second album, and everything was fine. A little bit more the same. Kind of a same type of thing. Last in line, whatever. It was a great song. And then I saw Dio on the Last in Line tour, and that was Vivian Campbell. It's when he had the, I can't believe I can't think of it, Fernandez or whatever it was, guitar, Aria Pro, that was kind of an Explorer body that lit up. He had an LED thing going in it, and when he did his big guitar solo, I mean, he was just going out to be the fastest guitar player in the world. There's no disputing. I mean, it was just... but there wasn't a lot of, it was a little bit more, Gary Moore in the beginning of, and he would do like, so it was kind of like Vivian Campbell. Then what happened, I think, this is what I think, and I was a very intense student of Vivian Campbell. As much information as I could get. Hit Parader Magazine, Circus Magazine, Guitar Player, Guitar World. Back then, you didn't have the web. Let me put it that way. So what happened is they brought Dawkins out on the road with them. And I believe that was Tooth and Nail. And great album, great player. George Lynch is just a killer player. And so I believe that Vivian was not largely or mostly a staccato player, but there was a definite flair with his right hand of trying to play fast, whether it was sloppy or not. Or whatever. It was great. But I honestly believe he came out on that next album and everything had changed. He used to have a wide stance, rock and roll wide stance when he played, but then the next album he came out and his feet were together and his heels were together. And he cut his hair and it was all different. It was just a different stance. And he started to try to play, he was trying to play everything, not everything, but a lot of things just legato all of a sudden. And Lynch, early on, is more of a legato player. And I swear to goodness, I watched it. I watched it in front of my own eyes. I know you might think I'm crazy. That Vivian Campbell went on the road as a headliner with Dawkins and was watching Lynch. I think he went out there because he or at least was listening to him. And, you know, Lynch had that legato thing. And then when you start looking at Vivian on the next couple of albums, check it out. He tries to do a little bit more legato stuff. And then I read an interview and it confirmed it. Right after that tour, he said, oh, I'm changing my playing style. I'm changing my playing style. And they were like, well, isn't the style that's right for you the one that you should stick with, And he goes, oh, no. He said, my touch has been way too heavy. That's what he said. That's verbatim. He said, my touch has been way too heavy. So he was no longer going to do or whatever. I mean, that's kind of what Vivian Campbell was doing. So then all of a sudden, then it was... Just listen to how drastic his playing style changes from, I think it's after the second album, Rock and Roll Children or Sacred Heart, whatever. I get them confused because I just lost interest because that fire that he had as a younger player, and I think he was in a band in Ireland. It was called Trinity. But he just came out burning, firing, just wailing all of the time. I loved him. But I believe there's an influence there, good or bad. And of course, then he's doing the whole Def Leppard thing, and you don't really have to worry about blazing and burning a solo in that group. But we wish him all the success in the world. Not that what I think about it really matters. It's just a bit of a case study of Vivian Campbell. It's interesting. So maybe we'll just jam a little bit. I can't play on a Les Paul. That's why you never see it. So I've had this since the mid-'90s. It was my father's. We'll do some Vivian stuff. It's all just great killer stuff. Anyway, that's not sounding much like Vivian Campbell anymore, but you get the picture, I guess, or I hope. I don't know. All right, so lastly, about Vivian Campbell. So then he started going legato. I watched it. I watched the influence, the whole thing. And then they interviewed him a little bit later. Yngwie was out now, and all of a sudden it was just like, you know, or it was more hopefully like, it was a whole heck of a lot cleaner than that. But you know what I mean? Just Yngwie just came out. It was just like note for note, just or not note for note. It's just so melodic. Yeah, it was definitely note for note. It was melodic, and you know, Vivian was a little bit more of a free, open style, a little sloppier, I guess. And so they asked him about Yngwie Malmsteen, and he said they asked him about trying to play fast or something, and it was when it was all brewing, it was so hot, all just everybody was aggravated about it. And he said, I don't give a flying F-bomb if I can play as fast as Yngwie Malmsteen or not. And he said, I'm not out to be the fastest guitar player in the world. Well, I'll tell you what, when I saw him on the Last in Line tour and he had that Aria Pro Explorer body guitar with the LEDs or whatever neon in it or whatever incandescence, I don't know, maybe a lamp on fire. I'm kidding. It was a long time ago, but he certainly seemed like he was trying to be the fastest guitar player in the world that night. But I loved it, and I used to try to copy it. I haven't even been playing with reverb or with delay. Well, I have been. No reverb. Crazy. Let's turn that off. Yeah, just, I can do that better. And to me, that's just kind of, at this point, that's just slop. You know, it's like, I don't want somebody to do just that to show how fast they can play. Anyway, I'm rambling. But, so he didn't want to be the fastest guitar player in the world. And I guess this has gone a little bit off the rails. I hope you all have a great night. Thanks, Case Study, Vivian Campbell. Let's see what happens.